Welcome back, it's me, Lou, and I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review. And today, we are looking at the new Marvel Legends Avengers Endgame, the Infinity Saga Thor. Okay, so I just purchased this action figure today, and today is September 9th, 2021. So, I have some questions about this action figure, more so the price. So I purchased this action figure at Target for $18.54, and that's the price it rung up before tax. So from my understanding and from what I remember, I think this new line of action figures, the Infinity Saga ones, I believe that their suggested retail price is $26, I think. I was at Target maybe a week or 2 weeks ago, and I recall seeing the Infinity Saga Odin figure, and I was about to pick it up, and then when I went to go check it at the price check, I think it rang up like $26 and maybe like 74 cents. And then I was like, okay, that's that's a little too rich for my blood. Because I did hear like a few months back that there was going to be some price increases on the Marvel Legends figures, and I think more specifically with the Infinity Saga wave of action figures. So then, when it rang up for $26, I'm like, I could kind of like pass on this. For me, the sweet spot with the Marvel Legends action figures has always been about $19 to $20, and when I heard rumors that the prices were going to go up to anywhere between $24 to $26, I was kind of like, maybe it's time for me to move on to like another toy line. And when I saw this figure today, this is actually a figure I really wanted, and I was willing to pay, the full $26. So that when I actually went to go check this out, I was really surprised when it only rung up at like $18.54. And I was very confused. I'm like, why is this cheaper than even like a normal Marvel Legends? And then when I got home, I immediately logged onto Amazon, and I was checking the prices for this. And at the moment, Amazon didn't have this for release yet. I think it might have been for like September 17th or something. And I think their price for the figure was $26, but it was marked down to $24. So that's where I'm kind of like lost. Like I'm very grateful that I found this figure for only $18.54, which is cheaper than a normal Marvel Legends. So I'm not sure if that was necessarily a pricing error or if this is the price moving forward, because I've seen some of the prices on other toy lines kind of fluctuate also. Like with the budget Spider-Man figures, I think I've seen those marked up maybe $1 or $2 than what they used to be. The budget G.I. Joe figures, I think, were $1 or $2 more than what a normal Hasbro budget figure goes for. But for this was an anomaly. It rang up under $20 before tax. And not that I'm complaining, but I'm just kind of curious if this is going to be the case with the other figures in this line, or if this was just, like I said, maybe some random pricing error. But either way, I'm very stoked to have this. I've been wanting this version of Thor for a long time. I know some people call him Fat Thor. To be honest, I call him Fat Thor also. And I believe this is Hasbro's first release of this version of the character. They released Bro Thor, which is the heavy Thor also. The Thor in Endgame that's like hanging out at New Asgard, and he's wearing like the sweatpants and the sunglasses and stuff. And that was a Build-A-Figure, which I believe was for Wave 3 of the Marvel Legends Endgame. And I think that wave included like Iron Patriot. And I had the head for that, but I never had all the other figures to complete the actual Build-A-Figure. So for me, this was really cool because I finally got to build up the huskier Thor, but fully suited up in armor. And to the best of my knowledge, I think the only other way you could get this character in this uniform is there's an SH Figure Arts version of Endgame Thor, but that's a really expensive figure. Last I checked on Amazon, I think it went for like anywhere between $87 to maybe like $130. And sometimes when you deal with Amazon, and especially with SH Figure Arts, you're not always 100% sure if what you're getting is the legit product. or if it's a knockoff, especially if you're dealing with a third-party seller. But for me, this is awesome. You know, I really wanted this version of the character, and I wasn't going to go down the route of paying $80 for the SH Figure Arts. So, you know, at the time, I was willing to pay the full $26 if that's what this was good. If that was going to be the original retail price, I was willing to pay that. But, you know, for $18, this is a win-win all the way around for me. So yeah, let's take a look at this guy. First off, let's examine the packaging. I absolutely love the Infinity Saga packaging for these Marvel Legends. It screams premium. It's not like the standard Marvel Legends packaging where it's kind of very plain and kind of generic looking. This one looks awesome. You kind of have this matte finish, but then the logos kind of have this like gloss on it to really make it pop out. The graphic design's great. I love that the fact that these Marvel Legends packaging, especially for Infinity Saga, it's so simple. It's just a plain rectangle, but they play around with the die cut of the window frame here, and it looks really cool. When you compare this to something like, you know, the new Mattel Masters of the Universe Revelation figures, those are beautiful figures, but the package design, it's so overthought and it's complicated, and it's probably adding like $2 to the price of the figure, which you really don't need. But it's so nice. It's simple. It's clean. It's if you're a mint on card collector, it's easy to store. The graphic design is beautiful. The composition is beautiful. On the spine, you get this awesome graphic here. It's a kind of like a glossy finish also. So you have like all the MCU characters from the Infinity Saga, and you get one half of the image on one side and the other half of the image on the other. And on the back, you get the full poster of the movie, and then a short description of Thor. Armed with Stormbreaker and Mjolnir, the son of Odin steps onto the battlefield to face Thanos one final time. So yeah, this is awesome. So far I've seen Odin, and I've passed up on him. I saw the 2-pack. It was the one I think has like the Jon Favreau Happy character, and maybe one of the Iron Man armors, I think. But that I almost bought that one too, just because I wanted the Jon Favreau figure. But I remember I had it in my hand, and I was checking the price. I think it was like $55, and I'm like, I'm not gonna pay $55 for this. So I put it back, and I'm kind of kicking myself for it because I haven't seen it since. But it's like I said, I can't stomach paying that much for, you know, a 2-pack. I'm already kind of getting burned out on Marvel Legends. I know that's sacrilegious to say, but, you know, they come out so frequently, and, you know, after, you know, you collect these for so long, it's kind of like, been there, done that, and there's a part of me that kind of wishes, I know this, I fall in a very, very, very small minority that's going to say this, but I kind of wish they just put a, you know, end cap on the Marvel Legends and just give us something new. But, you know, they're so deep into the line as it is, and it seems like they're just going to continue to move forward until they've made every character in the Marvel universe, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, you know, I think Marvel Legends, you know, it's safe to say it's here to stay. You know, it was like that 5 years ago, and I think it's going to be here for another 5 years at the very least. As long as it's profitable, and as long as there's characters to be made, you know, they're always going to be pushing out Marvel Legends. For me, though, it's kind of like reached a peak. You know, I got all the characters I've been wanting in terms of like the comic book characters and the movie characters, but I don't know. For me, it's getting a little exhausting. It's kind of hard on the wallet. Not that they're forcing us to buy the figures, but I always enjoyed collections where it was very finite and you could complete it within a year or two. And this seems like it's never going to end, which for some people I'm sure they're ecstatic about, but for me it's kind of like, you know, I'd like to try to move on to like newer and different things. So let's get on with taking out Thor. So I actually plan on keeping this figure mint in the box. I love the package design. And my Marvel Legends figures, I haven't really been displaying them, to be honest. I mostly take them out, fiddle around with them. I might keep a couple around my desk to like play with at work or whatever, but for the most part, a lot of them go into like a tote, and they never see the light of day unless I want to play with them or do a video or make a custom or something. All right, so here's Thor. First impressions of the action figure while it's still in this plastic tray. It's about time. That's all I gotta say. It's about time. I've been waiting for this figure for a long time. I really wanted the Bro Thor when it came out, the Build-A-Figure, but that wave was really hard for me to find in my area. I'd always just find one or two figures, and I didn't want to cave in and pay the secondary market price, because at the time they were really jacked up, and for me it wasn't worth it to get all those other figures just for the Build-A-Figure Thor. But this one I can't say no, just because I love Thor in this armor, and I love his hair and the beard and everything. I'm not too fond of the fat Thor gimmick. I don't know. I mean, I get it. It's funny and all that, but I don't know. I like my Chris Hemsworth, you know, all jacked and ripped. But I do love, it's a very love-hate relationship. I do like certain aspects about this character design. Alright, real quick before we look at the figure, let's examine accessories. So we have a lightning effect here. We have Stormbreaker, two different pairs of hands, one pair of hands, and then we have Mjolnir. So these are kind of cool because they kind of like have like a translucent plastic. So it's kind of embodying that lightning effect. If you've been collecting Marvel Legends, you know, for the past maybe like 5 or 6 years, you probably have an endless amount of Mjolnir hammers and maybe a handful of Stormbreakers here. So, you know, if you wanted to have like a normal looking version of the weapon, I'm sure you have that in your catalog or library of action figures. Getting extra pairs of hands is always cool, especially if you're into fig photography. It provides you, you know, the tools you need to create different expressions. Like, I'm an artist also besides just doing the toy stuff, and for me, like, you know, what makes good like fig photography from what I've seen also is not only the pose of the figure, but sometimes the expression on the character's face and the expression, you know, so much of human expressions also told through our hands. So it's really cool when they give you other hand options other than these like C grips that, you know, just hold the weapons. So if you're like into posing your figures or fig photography, you can make more expressive characters with these extra accessories. So that's always a plus. Moving on to the figure itself. Wow, this is great. Really beautiful figure. All right, so if some of you have noticed, I kind of have a different setup. So I'm using a different webcam than my old previous document cam. This camera, it's a lot sharper. So to get a really crisp image, the only thing is that it's always autofocusing. So every now and then during the videos, I'm always trying to find the sweet spot of, you know, how far I should have the figure away from the camera just to get the clear amount of detail on here. And the lighting sometimes looks a little overblown depending on the paint color. So I'll try to keep this at a distance to where the image will be as sharp as possible. All right, so yeah, the sculpting on this is beautiful. The hair is awesome. Lots of nice detail. Beautiful. It looks like there's almost like a wash on the hair too. So it gives it a little bit more vibrancy and depth. And as you can see, the sculpting where the beard is braided looks amazing. He has a scar over his eye. So this is like Thor when he's like pissed off. So his pupils aren't painted in. So he kind of has that blank eyeball kind of look. The armor is nice and detailed. A lot of crisp sculpting on it. One thing that I did notice is that, you know, when you look at the back, so it's not a cloth goods back or cloth goods cape. The cape is actually soft. It's kind of like a soft rubbery plastic. And it's kind of weird because if you look at it carefully, the camera's not going to notice it. But there's almost like this weird horizontal striped pattern that's going across it. It's invisible to the camera, but if you had this figure in hand, you'd actually see it. It almost kind of resembles, if you've seen 3D printed material, how it looks like it's built up in layers. The cape almost kind of has that pattern effect on the back, if you look at it. It's kind of faint though. Like I said, it's not going to catch on the camera, but in person you're going to notice it. And the cape, it's beautiful. It's well sculpted. Lots and lots of folds. Really impressed with that. One thing that's always kind of taken me with a lot of capes, I'm not sure if it's just something that the designers or artists have been doing, but I've noticed this with like some of the McFarlane figs and even some of the Marvel Legends figs, is that, it's very rarely that you see a cape sculpted so it's symmetrical. There's always going to be one end that extends out further than the other, one end that's higher than the other, such as the case here. As you can see, this corner of the cape's lower to the ground than this. For me, it's a nice detail. It makes the cape look a little bit more dynamic. But for me, I personally would rather see a cape be completely symmetrical than asymmetrical. Just because if you're having a character stand at a very neutral pose, it just looks more natural. It's cool that it has a flow like this, but I'd prefer this to be completely symmetrical, than having it extend further out and kind of like waving. But that's a personal preference. That's what I kind of feel. But yeah, it's very well sculpted, and I just noticed this too. If you look at the hair in the back, look at that. It's so much detailed. They really built up the layers and the braids and the ponytail. This looks awesome. Everything looks beautiful about this figure. In terms of articulation, his head rotates left and right. I think it's on a ball joint, so it goes up and down. The cape doesn't look like it's removable. It might be, but it looks like it might be pegged into the torso. His arms, they can rotate. Has a bicep cut. His elbows, double jointed, it looks like. Yes, double jointed. His wrists rotate, and I can't tell if there might be articulation, but the cuff is kind of like going a little too far over the wrist. So if there's more articulation, it might be just kind of covered up. Oh yeah, okay, so the wrists are articulated. At least on the left hand, it could go up and down. Like that. I believe he does not have a waist swivel. Alright, so at least to the best of my knowledge, he doesn't have a waist swivel, but he does have swivel above the abdomen and under the chest. So he could get some side movement. It feels like there might be some slight waist swivel, but it might be hindered. Because I could kind of feel it jostling a little bit. Leg articulations, what you come to expect from other Marvel Legends. He could kick up, he could super kick out, not too high. He does have a thigh cut. He has very thick thighs, because this is like big Thor. Double jointed knees, and the standard leg articulation at the ankle. There is no boot cut, so there's no boot swivel. So yeah, wonderful figure. Yeah, I like this a lot. So since we're on the subject of Thor and Endgame, I have some other Thor figures we could compare it to. Alright, so I might need some clarification in the comments below. So this is Thor. I want to say this is the Thor that came with the Groot 2-pack, I think. I think it's the Groot that's like teenage Groot, where he's a little bit taller. And I think that's what it was from. There was I'm not sure if it was an Amazon exclusive, but there was a multi-pack that I passed up on. It might have been for Infinity War. It was the one with Thor with the eye patch, and I think they came in with maybe Rocket and Groot. I remember passing up on that, and I'm kind of kicking myself because I think that goes for a lot of money now. So if I wanted to get it now, it could probably cost me a premium. But yeah, so I think this was with a 2-pack. And this represents Thor from Infinity War when he was skinnier. So there's something odd about these new figures. Like I remember when I noticed this with Odin. I'm not sure if this is the box, but they almost seem like they're slightly smaller, but I don't think that's the case. It might be like if you compare these figures side by side in terms of their height, this Thor is considerably taller than this one. Yeah, so I gotta pick up the Odin figure and just double check because when I first saw this in the store, I could have sworn that these newer Marvel Legends actually look smaller than the old ones. Now I'm not sure if that's like a cost cutting approach, that Hasbro's doing just to cut down the price of the figures, to make them slightly smaller, or if they're trying to be more universal in their scale and trying to get the scale correct. So maybe they're resetting the scale of the figures. But this figure, for some reason, not that it's any less quality, but it does seem a little bit shorter for a Thor figure, especially unless this one was just too tall to begin with. So you can see here their body armor is very similar. This one's just, a huskier build. This figure actually feels a little bit more engineered better. Like this one, it's not that it's a bad figure, but I think it's starting to feel a little bit dated, in my opinion. Even though the paint application is amazing, I think the paint job on the face here is very realistic. But something about this doesn't feel as fresh or as modern as this one does. This one feels like the engineering's maybe a little bit better, or maybe the materials they're using is a little bit better. I don't know, unless I'm just being like psychotic and crazy, but that's what I kind of feel. This one just feels a little bit better. But in some ways, I look at, I turn these around, and then this one has a much better cape. Once again, here's that thing I was talking about, symmetry of the cape. There's always going to be one end that's longer or shorter than the other. Maybe it makes it look more dynamic. But this cape, though, it does look more detailed than this one. The cuts are a lot deeper. The folds are a lot deeper. I like the shade of red better, too. This is a much more subdued red, where this one's very, very loud and almost like cartoon-like. And let me grab I have another Thor here figure. Let me go grab it. All right, so this is the same Thor as this one. The only thing is I took the Build-A-Figure Thor head for the Bro Thor, and then I just swapped it out, and put it on this guy. Because I really wanted, like, Bro Thor, but in the body armor. But since Hasbro didn't make the Fat Thor yet, I just kind of had to settle with this. And it's weird, though, because, like, I remember when I first saw this head sculpt that came with the Build-A-Figure, I think, like, Iron Patriot. I believe that was the figure it came with. I remember thinking, wow, that's a pretty good likeness. The hair is sculpted, looks really great. But then you get something like this, and this thing just blows this one out of the water. Yeah, I mean, the face sculpting and the hair, it's almost in terms of the hairstyle, it's almost like a toss-up. Like, this one looks very fine, very crisp detail, but something about this one just looks awesome. I don't think the details are as cut as deep or as sharp as this one, but I do like the overall form of the hair better. It looks cleaner on this one. The beard on this one looks a lot better. So yeah, I mean, for me, this Thor didn't exist in the movies at all, because this is skinny Thor with Fat Thor's head. So in my head, maybe this is maybe this is like Fat Thor after goes on like a diet plan and loses some weight. So yeah, we have a nice evolution of Thors here. All right, so if I had to rate this figure numerically, I would easily give this figure, I want to say maybe an 8. At least a 7.5 to an 8. The only reason why I wouldn't go higher is because, it's like I said, I'm not sure what's going on in terms of the scale here. Like, this figure always felt really tall to begin with. But I always attributed that to the fact that maybe Chris Hemsworth in Thor is actually a taller character or actor, than the rest of his castmates. But this figure is just a little bit shorter, and I'm not sure if Hasbro is just resetting the scale of their Marvel Legends figures, or if they're just trying to cut back on costs. Because I've seen that before with their Star Wars figures in the past. Like, if you compare some of their older 3 3/4 figures, throughout time, they started at a certain height, but then they just kept on getting shorter and shorter. I think part of it was to, like, keep the figures to, like, a realistic scale to one another. But I think there was also a certain point where the figures they're making were actually just smaller. And I'm kind of wondering if that's going to be the case with Marvel Legends. Like, if at a certain point, they're just going to start shrinking them down. Because I'm already seeing it with their budget, like, superhero figures. Like I picked up the new budget Spider-Man figure, and I'm going to review that in the future, but it looks considerably smaller than the other budget figures. And I'm not sure if that's just a case of them trying to make the figure more realistic in scale, or if they're just cutting back on the cost for the figures. But with that being said, and coming back to Thor, I think this is a beautiful figure. If you're like a completionist and you need the entire like Infinity Saga cast, I think that getting this figure goes without saying. It's a very different iteration of Thor. It's a very memorable version of Thor. It's the Thor that we see when they close out the Infinity Saga. And even though I'm kind of like on the fence about Fat Thor, you know, there's stuff for me, he seemed like it was just like a joke. But at the same time, it does lend credence to the character and the Thor's story arc, especially going throughout the Infinity Saga. And it talks about, goes to great lengths that he's depressed. He's going through some things emotionally and mentally. But I just love that scene at the end of the movie when they're about to take on Thanos for the last time, and then he kind of powers up, and it just looks badass. I always see that scene when he's standing on the battlefield, and he soups up, and he turns into like the Thor we all love, but he's just kind of husky. So yeah. This is a great figure. Like I said, I was willing to pay the full price for him, but I was lucky to get him for like well under $20 before tax. So yeah, if anyone has any information about that, like what's going on with the prices of these figures, let me know, because to the best of my knowledge, I thought these figures were supposed to like see a price increase, but I was surprised to pay actually less than the normal Marvel Legends. Okay, wrapping this up. Once again, my name is Lou. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you are a returning viewer or subscriber, thank you for all your support, comments, and likes. I greatly appreciate it. And until the next video, go out there, hunt down some toys, have some fun, and I'll talk to you later. Take care.